What's up, duelists? It's your boy. This last weekend, RBET02, 207 entrants. Oh my goodness, did I ever think we'd get to this? Honestly, yeah, I knew it. I knew it when I first started playing Edison format a couple years ago. I was like, oh shit, this is kind of lit. I bet we could get this pretty poppin', and look what we've done. I mean, this is pretty sick. If you didn't catch the tournament, the full VOD, including every match from top 8, is up on the channel. Make sure and peep that. Make sure and check it out. You don't want to miss any of the action. Today's video, we're going to be talking about the metagame breakdown, and I'm going to be showing you guys the top 8 deck lists. So, without further ado, let's hop right into things. If you aren't already subscribed, make sure and subscribe. Make sure and like this video. I want to see 700 likes. I think it's realistic. I think you guys could give me 700 likes. I believe it. All right. On to things. The metagame breakdown. Let's talk a little bit about the metagame breakdown. Well, for starters, Absolute Zero, still the most represented strategy in the tournament by a fair bit. Diva Hero taking up 11.5%. Hero Beatdown taking up 8.2%, and Hero Frogs taking up 2.4%. So altogether, over 20% of the field is playing an Absolute Zero strategy. They are different variants, of course. Very different decks. They play very differently. But if you're looking at things from kind of like that perspective, then Absolute Zero, definitely a dominant force. And it kind of translated into top 8. Not as much as I think it should have, given its representation. I think the Diva Hero deck specifically underperformed. I think the Hero Beat decks performed as expected, and I think the Hero Frog decks, obviously, we'll get into that in a second. Next most represented deck is Vayu Turbo at 9.6% and Blackwings at 8.2%. These are both Blackwing strategies. They're both very, very aggressive strategies, fan favorite stuff. But ultimately, both of these decks kind of underperformed. There was only one in top 8. And that one was kind of a combination of Blackwings and Vayu Turbo. We'll get into the list in a second, but you'll see it. It's definitely a different approach to the strategy, and I really like what Dimitri did with the deck. But the traditional Blackwing and Vayu Turbo decks just did not do well in this tournament. They kind of just fell apart. Looks like people were metagaming more for it since it won the last tournament, and didn't really make the cut, despite being a huge representation of the field. And then the rest of the field, I mean... it's Edison format, you know, like look, every deck there's like 3% or whatever. A lot of people I know were worried about the Norlaris Dragon deck. There was one person playing it in the whole event. It's like it's Edison format. You can play whatever you want. As long as you play well, as long as you do well, as long as you master your deck, you have a plan for everything. I mean, as long as you have the generic powerful outs or the specific outs for the things that really screw you, then you're going to do well. And I think this metagame breakdown really shows that. A little sad to not see Fairy Control top, of course, because that's my favorite deck, as you guys know. But, you know, it was a great top 8, The storyline of this top 8, before we get into the deck list, the storyline, there were two teams, I think, two major teams, the Ring of Destruction and the Disciples teams. Shoutouts to both those teams. They both had an incredible tournament. I believe the Disciples put 2 people into top 8, and I believe Ring of Destruction also put 2 people into top 8. And both of those respective teams, members who topped with a totally original deck list, topped with a very, very powerful strategy, and we'll get into that. Let's go ahead and check out some of these decks. First off, in 8th place, Dimitri with the Blackwings deck. This sideboard is a little bugged. I have to assume that the last card is a second copy of Light Imprisoning Mirror. That just makes the most sense from looking at it. But it could be like another Dark Bribe or something. I don't really know. Just add whatever. Dimitri, if you're watching this video, let me know what the last sideboard card was for your tournament run. This deck is honestly a really sick approach to Blackwings. You've got the Vayu Turbo stuff in Dark Grepher and Armageddon Knight, so you have the powerful starters. But you also have the powerful starters from the Blackwing end, which is Black Whirlwind and Shura the Blue Flame. Maxing out on both Sirocco and Vayu, giving yourself the optimal amount of discards for your Dark Grepher and just powerful normal summon in Sirocco. Main decking the Burial And also main decking maximum number of hand hate. You've got 2 deck dev, 1 Mind Crush, and 1 Trap Dot Shoot in the main. I have to imagine these were very, very good for him in the tournament. I know I saw him resolving multiples of these in tandem. I know there was a game we saw him win on camera where he resolved Deck Devastation Virus and Mind Crush in the same turn, and his opponent just had nothing to work with. In the sideboard, he's got, of course, the standard 2 DD Crow, 2 Cyber Dragon. These are the 2 most powerful sideboard cards in the format. They really do the most, especially when your deck is already doing the most, if that even makes sense. I don't even know if that makes sense. He's also got the 2 Nox, 2 Deep Prisons, the side deck Pot of Avarice, which is an adaptation that I was trying out in the Armageddon Night Blackwings, and it looks like it was also working out well for Dimitri. I think this is a card that we might see more of in the sideboard moving forward in aggressive decks. It's just kind of a way to give yourself extra Bryonics, extra whatever, Goyo Guardians in grindier matchups. I think that this card lets you play a little bit more aggressively in some post-board games, and I do like seeing it in the sideboard here for Dimitri. He's also got a cute little Neospatian Grand Mole Tech in the sideboard, which is super cool. In the extra deck, he's got all the best level 5, 6s, whatever. And then, of course, the triple Armed Wing, double Armor Master, and Silver Wind for the value strategy. Interesting that he chose not to play Plague Spreader Zombie, but I kind of understand that. Given that your deck space is a little tight, he did want to play the Upstart Goblins to maximize his opening of either Dark Refer or Shura Whirlwind or whatever. You'd have to cut a very powerful card and powerful interactive card to give yourself Plague Spreader for that extra piece of interaction. And between 3 Vayus, 3 Sirokkos, maybe that extra brick, that extra just card you don't really want to be drawing is being cut for consistency. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing is what I'm saying. All right, that's it for 8th place or 7th place. Both of these players get 7th place because it's double elimination. So 7th place for Dimitri. Congratulations on earning your invite, Dimitri. Well done with Blackwings and a very innovative list at that. I like this a lot. I want to play this list. After looking at it, it just makes sense to me. Definitely want to play it. Next up, we've got Otengaku. I'm sorry if I am mispronouncing your name, Yokoman. Yokoman. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. I'm sorry, but you did exceptionally well with Hero Beat. You're the only Hero Beat player in top 8, and this deck, it just looks solid. It looks very solid. You've got your double skill drains as the floodgate. You got 2 Dark Bribes and 2 Starlight Rose to protect it. Of course, triple Spark, triple Hero Blast. These are the archetype specific removal spells. They're very powerful. Hero Blast and Gemini Spark both being chainable. They serve a lot of purpose and utility in this deck. Got 2 Ocean, of course, for the waters. You've got an elemental hero, Voltic. This might be the 41st card, and I really like this card. It helps you reuse cards that get banished due to Miracle Fusion, banished due to just your opponent's bottomless trap holes, deep prisons, that kind of thing. So I think this is a very solid card. It's an easy way for you to take over the game. It's also a light, works well with your 2 Honest. Very nice card, very nice card. Also works well with the Skyscraper. I do like this card. I think it's a powerful inclusion here. In the sideboard, you've got the Heavy Storm. Definitely don't want to be mating it with, how many trap cards is it? 16 trap cards? Yeah. 16 trap cards and a Skyscraper, alongside Future Fusion, Triple Gemini Spark, and Space Heaven. You're going to have a lot of set cards with this deck. Heads up decision, Triple Chain Disappearance. I'm curious about this inclusion. I haven't played much with this card in a while. I know it's pretty good against stuff like Debris Dragon, Dandelion, and Treeborn Frog, but I also know it can be a little awkward because if the Treeborn Frog player is playing enemy controller or like whatever, they can chain it to this. I don't know. This card's probably really good. This card's probably a little slept on right now. It can eat up anything. It eats up divas. It does a great job at that. Eats up malicious, A lot of decks have a target for this, especially like the main ones being played. The only one that it's not very good against, obviously, you can't really main this card because it's a blank against Glads and Blackwings. You can't really hit Test Tiger because they can just priority activate it, and against Blackwings, there's just nothing you can hit. So, yeah, that's the Chain Disappearance sideboard. You got the 2 Light Imprisoning Mirrors. Of course, you're not activating any light monsters on the field outside of Voltic. 2 Pulling the Rug. Interesting that they're using this over Mask of Restrict. It makes sense because Mask of Restrict would shut off their own Gemini Spark. So I understand that. No brain control here. Not really a lot of ways to convert off of it. No real ways to synchro outside of course, Starlight Road. And a couple Fossil Dinos to round things out. Solid deck list. Solid performance. Congratulations again to Yokoman. Very, very well done. Next up, the 5th place deck lists. We've got Beast Mode at 5th place with Quickdraw, Dandy Warrior, meaning triple Super Nimble Mega Hamster. We talked about this a little bit on camera. When you're going first, opening Hamster is just like the nuts. It's just really, really good. Going second, it's obviously a lot worse, and in certain situations where your opponent has a monster in play and is threatening a Caius, it's not great. But it worked out really well for Beast Mode. Got his engine online, got him going, got him access to the Raikou, which is super crucial with triple Avarice. Got to find that Dandelion. He elected to include one copy of Battle Fader as additional defense. I like this inclusion a lot. Playing a heavy trap lineup, 2 main deck Dust Tornadoes, and the Call of the Haunted in the main. I do like this trap lineup a lot as well. I think it looks very solid. There's nothing I would change about it, honestly, after looking at it. I think having Starlight Road in this deck is pretty good. You want to make a lot of plays sometimes where you're just like Titanial plus another monster, swing into something, or you want to be able to summon 2 monsters like Quickdraw plus Dandelion into a Torrential and just be solid that way, aggressively, and then also defensively with all these trap cards and all these monsters you want to commit to the field. Starlight Road is a pretty good job of protecting that, so I think maining it here makes a lot of sense. In the sideboard, of course, you see the double Cyber Dragon, triple DD Crow. This is the pretty much the Edison format standard at this point. Like, if you got the DD Crows for the unfair matchups, the Cyber Dragons for the aggro matchups, then you're looking pretty. An additional system down for the machine matchups. I think this card is super important in the Ancient Gear matchup. If you noticed in the matchup charts or the metagame chart, Ancient Gear was actually kind of popular at this event. Triple Vanity's Fiend, of course, for the unfair decks. I really like this approach to sideboarding. It's just 3 of everything I need for the unfair stuff, and then a couple things to help me in the aggro matchups where I might be a little weaker, like Jujutsu Masters versus Glads, or whatever system down versus Ancient Gears. The last copy of Dust Tornado for Royal Oppression, of course, and for other things like Skill Drain that could give this deck a problem. Triple Pulling the Rug for Diva Hero and Monarchs. This is one of the most solid 1-for-1 ways to answer Caius, the most popular card in this format, so I like it. In the extra deck is where things get interesting. The extra deck, he included a Road Warrior, which is a level 8 you can make with Quickdraw. Elected not to include the Trident Dragon. What I probably would have done is maybe shaved a Drill Warrior for the Trident Dragon. I think the Trident Dragon definitely comes up more than making the 3rd Drill Warrior, because the only way you're ever making a 3rd Drill Warrior is if, I don't know, you've resolved a Pot of Avarice. So, yeah. I mean, I could see it. Maybe even the 2nd Iron Chain could go for the Trident Dragon. I think because you have the Call of the Haunted, 1 Debris Dragon and 1 Raikou, plus Call of the Haunted is a Trident Dragon OTK, so I would definitely want to include that somewhere because I could see that coming up quite a bit. Double Stardust, of course, 1 for the road, 1 for the debris. You know how it goes. Solid deck list from Beast Mode. Congratulations to him for topping this event. Well done. All right, next 5th place deck list is Time on the Round. This is the first member of the Disciples team to make top 8 with this incredibly sick Smokescreen Lightsworn deck. One thing that's true about all of the decks in the top 5, well, 4 of the decks in the top 5, is that they approach the game from at least 2 different angles. This is important because when your opponent is sideboarding against you, let's say they're bringing in something like Light Imprisoning Mirror. What Time on the Round here has done with his Lightsworn, Smokescreen, and Vayu deck is that he's made it so that Light Imprisoning Mirror is as low impact as possible in post-board situations. Yes, it's going to cut off some of your milling things. Yes, it's going to cut off some of the things you might leave in, like if you tend to leave in a Wolf. I don't know exactly how it sideboards. I'm assuming it's something like out 3 Wolves, 2 JD, maybe a Raikou, maybe a Lila, maybe Lumina gets cut, maybe Celestia gets cut. I could see like that being the cuts. Maybe even the Honest get cut, I'm not sure. And then you bring in just the whole sideboard. Like literally all 15 cards. And then all of a sudden your deck is this Royal Oppression, Vayu Turbo deck with Dark Reavers, Armageddon Knights, and your opponent's looking at their Light Imprisoning Mirror like, oh god, what have I done? This is just a really cool strategy. I love the whole approach to this. Having like just the perfect ratios on this, like what a scientifically calculated deck. You've got the main deck Caius so that you can shift. You can shift from the Lightsworn into the Vayu without maxing out on things like Celestia, making the sideboarding awkward. The extra deck is very interesting. There's no Cyber Dragons in this deck at all, so there's no Chimera Tech in the extra deck. There is a Tempest Magician You can make this with Plague and Lila. You can also make it... I think that's it. I think you can make it with Plague and Lila. Really solid stuff. Really solid deck list. And of course, at 4th place, we've got Marcus with the exact same deck. These guys really came up with something special. I like this deck a lot. I think it's really, really solid. I definitely want to try it out. I'm excited to see how it does. These types of strategies do very well in big tournaments because your opponent... That's the thing, right? There's a different sort of approach to big tournaments, right? There's a different sort of strategy to big tournaments. And I think the big strategy is to mix up your opponent in that one match and then leave them fucked up, like, just for game 2. Like, you just want to win game 1, win game 2 with your smokescreen strategy and move on. And I think these smokescreen strategies, they do really well in big tournaments. They maybe don't do it as well on ladder when your opponent's more prepared for it. They understand you as a player. They know what you're doing. But having this sort of information, like, they call it a smokescreen for a reason, right? They call it a smokescreen for a reason. If you're coming in with a smokescreen, your opponent can't read what you're about to do. They can't see how you're going to attack the game. And I think that having this smokescreen is really, really solid for big tournaments. So if you can figure out ways to do this in Edison format, it's going to be a great way to approach things, especially with people sideboarding narrow outs like Light Imprisoning Mirror, or like, I don't know, what's another card people side against? Lightsworn. You get the point. Book of Moon, maybe not so good against this Value Turbo sideboard stuff. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Soul Release, maybe not so good. Maybe not so good against these Value Turbo stuff. So, yeah, I mean, that's it. Electing to main deck the Solemn, too. This deck list is sick. This deck list is sick. I got to give a big shout out to the Disciples for this one. Okay, next up, we're getting into the next big team, Ring of Destruction, Cameron Saunders. You know him well. You love him. He's the guy with the Korean girl profile picture. You've seen him somewhere. I'm sure you have. He's a dueling book judge. He's a solid duelist across multiple formats, has a strong understanding of the game, and he's playing this deck that I'm not sure exactly if he helped design it with Raunuk, but I know Raunuk definitely did a lot of work on this deck, and it is incredible. This is the Frog Hero deck, the 40-card Frog Hero deck. One of my biggest issues with the Frog Hero deck, I've covered it here on the channel with Raunuk before, was that polymerization sucks. It's really heavy card disadvantage. Even when you're pitching something like Treeborn Malicious, it's still like 3 cards for an absolute 0, which it's not great, let's be honest. They trimmed on that entirely, cut the Sphere of Chaoses entirely, focused on just the most important interactions of the deck, which is summon Stratos, search Malicious, activate something that discards the Malicious, and from there you're just in an incredible position because all of these cards that discard the Malicious get you an insurmountable advantage in a lot of matchups. Going first and having Stratos 1-for-1 is like, it's disgusting. It's like, you just pitch your Malicious, special summon out Substitoad, you sacrifice the other Malicious that you special summon from the deck, bring out the frogs, do all of the frog stuff, use your Swap Frog to bounce the Stratos, so you still have the Stratos again to use next turn, and then after all that, you end with a dupe block, your opponent can't even attack you, and I think you're up like 1 or 2 cards, you're up like 7 or 8 cards, you just get a dupe block for free, you have a Stratos follow-up for the next turn to put you even further ahead, all of your Miracle Fusions are live. It is one of the most disgusting openings in this format, and I really like playing 40 cards here and an additional copy of eCall to just guarantee that you open that the maximum number of times. In the sideboard, Cameron and Raunuk did have a little bit of differences. Spoiler alert, Raunuk did get 2nd place at this tournament, so he is the next. Cameron's got, of course, 2 Cyber Dragon, 3 DD Crow. I mean, this is just best sideboard cards that, like, if you want to cover the most ground possible, these are the 2 best sideboard cards in Edison format. They cover a lot of ground. He's also got 2 Fossil Dyna, which I think is a really cool inclusion from both these players. Normally, Fossil Dyna is the card beating up on decks like this, but in the mirror match, I mean, hey, you need something. And Fossil Dyna is a little bit faster, a little bit more proactive than Vanity's Fiend. You don't need a tribute. You can summon it against decks even if they flip Mask of Restrict against you. You can actually side down with this deck pretty much to the bare bones number of tribute monsters you need. You could like side out 3 Ryza, side out like Archaeus, maybe side out a Substoad or something like that, and just be really resilient to Mask of Restrict too, which is something that the other Frog Monarch decks kind of fail to do. They're too linear. This deck approaches things from multiple angles. It's got the hero engine, which is like needs very specific answers, like to handle that. And then, of course, you've got the Frog Monarch stuff, which just needs very specific answers to answer that. So you're approaching the game from two different points. And this is something that both the Disciples and the Ring of Destruction guys did really, really well, is they're approaching the game from multiple angles, forcing the opponent to pick and choose which engine they want to respond to, and then maybe just get 50-50'd. It's a really, really cool approach to the game. I think these guys have it down to a science. 5 discard traps. Again, we were talking about this a lot on the channel the past few weeks. These discard traps are broken as fuck. They are so good. When you can support these by discarding like a Treeborn Frog or 2 Malicious, you know, that's all you need, really. That's all you need is just a monster that searches something, and then you have this chainable, like, no bullshit answer to anything in the format. Puts your opponent back a turn. We had games on camera where Raonic stacked his opponent 4 cards. He had resolved 2 Wind Blasts and the same Ryza twice thanks to Swap Frog. And his opponent just saw 7 cards the whole game. And the game just ended. Because there's just nothing you can do, right? Your opening hand matters so much against this deck because you can so easily get locked out with Ryza and Wind Blast. That's a deadly way to approach the game. I really, really like this deck a lot. I can't wait to play it. Congratulations to Cameron on his run. Very, very impressive stuff. Of course, Raonic, a lot of what I've said about this deck is the same. Their main deck is exactly the same, I think. Oh, no, there might be one difference. I think Raonic is playing Trap Dust Shoot over... What is he playing? Trap Dust Shoot over... Is it a spell card? I think it's over Book of Moon. I think Cameron elected to play the Book of Moon over the Trap Dust Shoot. That's understandable. Book of Moon is nice, too, because it gives you an additional answer to things like Vanity's Fiend. But, yeah, hopping back and forth between these two lists, hopping like a little froggy. You know the vibes. You know the vibes. Unifrog was also a really, really smart inclusion. This is a card that gives you outs to things like Royal Oppression, you know, just back rows that give you trouble. You can end on this plus Dupe Frog, kind of just poke at your opponent in certain matchups like Hero Beat. Give them a lot of trouble. If they don't have skill drain, they're just going to bleed advantage trying to defend themselves against this card. And it forces your opponent to keep in cards like Deep Prison and Mirror Force, which are really fucking shitty against Ryza and Caius. I will say it. So it's really interesting. Oh, I guess he also has triple Raigeki Break. That's another change. What else did he cut here? What else did he cut for that third Raigeki Break? Foolish Burial? Yeah, it's Foolish Burial. So instead of playing the Foolish Burial, Raonic's actually playing 6 discard traps, maximizing off of the best removal spells in the format, just giving himself the largest opportunity to open one or multiples of these, and just have a really easy time dealing with whatever threats the opponent is trying to throw at him. In the sideboard, he's got a little bit of differences. He doesn't have the Cyber Dragons, which I find interesting. It makes sense to a degree, but also, I don't know. I think Cyber Dragon's pretty solid in the strategy, and it can help a lot in different beatdown matchups. He's got 2 GB Hunters, which I'm honestly curious if these are better or worse than Cyber Dragons against Glads. Against Glads, you summon a Cyber Dragon, you run over their guy, and it's just like, it's almost better than just relying on a GB Hunter to go the distance, especially when Glads have usually like triple Compulse, triple Book of Moon, that kind of stuff. In the sideboard, he's got 2 Book of Moons, 2 Bottomless, extra pieces of defense, as well as 2 Dust Tornadoes, extra pieces of spot removal to help supplement the 6 discard traps as well. Cameron had triple Mirror Votes for the Gladiator Beast matchup. That matchup is really... It's okay. It's not bad. It's not bad, but they definitely do need a little help in the matchup. And that's why you can see these targeted hate pieces like Gladiator Beast Hunter from Raonic and Mirror of Oaths from Cameron. So, yeah, good stuff, good stuff. Triple Fossil Dyna, going up the full 3 for the unfair stuff, and, of course, triple DD Crow. This card is super clutch in a lot of matchups. It's super clutch in the mirror match. It's super clutch against hero decks. Against Hero Beat, they only play 2 waters, so you can oftentimes clip their wings. If they Miracle Fusion, they only have the Ocean, and you DD Crow the Ocean. So you should be in a pretty good spot if that happens. DD Crow, just fantastic card, especially when your engine has a bunch of natural ways to make up for the disadvantage that DD Crow offers your deck. Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot. Shout out to Team Ring of Destruction for 2 players in the top 3, but one man. He took it all the way. He didn't even drop a single match in this tournament. The first place player, Zerus, playing zombies. Diva Zombies. This is such a sick deck. I like it a lot. I like everything about this deck. 1 Bottomless, 1 Wind Blast, 4 books. You gotta read up on some knowledge, my guys. You gotta read up on some knowledge. You got the 2 Book of Moon, 2 Book of Life, double Pyramid Turtle, double Goblin Zombie. The 2 Divas, of course, is your supplementary tuner to the Plague Spreader Zombie. Both Return and Burial to make sure that your resources are more permanent, you know? Make sure that you have extra pushes at things. I like in his extra deck, he included the Revive King Hades, of course, and the Gaia Knight. I think these are both great inclusions. He did elect to include Ancient Fairy Dragon over Doom Kaiser Dragon. I don't know if that's ideal, but for him it seemed to work out. There's not really a great way to make Ancient Fairy Dragon in this deck. I guess Diva plus like Sangan or Reaper makes it, but I don't know. I feel like Doom Kaiser Dragon taking the opponent's Plague comes up a little bit more. If you look at the sideboard, he's got 2 Cyber Dragons, 2 DD Crows, and a Kaiku, as well as 2 Soul Releases. This is just an incredible way to handle graveyard shenanigans, and I think it works out really nicely in this deck where you can surmount advantage with Goblin Zombie, tutoring stuff. Your monsters all replace themselves. If you're spending a card to maybe remove a key card in the graveyard, you have a lot of time to find a way to recoup that advantage with like a Caius over a Goblin Zombie. If you're like sticking a Pyramid Turtle, and you're just shutting off your opponent's like Miracle Fusions, which is obviously one of the biggest things in this event, but also your opponent's like Vayus, your Plague Spreaders, their Lightsworn stuff. If you look at all of the decks in this top 8, none of these decks want to get hit with the Kaiku. None of them want to see this card on play, unanswered. Like, the Frog decks don't want to see it. The Lightsworn Vayu decks definitely don't want to see it. The Quickdraw deck does not love Kaiku. Of course, Hamster does a good job of walling it out, but you know, banishing key cards from the graveyard, shutting off Pot of Avarices, shutting off Debris Dragons, that kind of thing. Even the earlier decks, like Hero Beat, like, you don't want to be hit with a Kaiku at any point. You don't want your crucial cards to get banished. You don't want your Miracle Fusions to be shut off, and you don't want your Vayu stuff to be shut off. So I think that that's a really, really solid inclusion from Zerus in the sideboard. And just understanding that the way the format is now is that people are really trying to push these discard traps. They're really trying to push these unfair graveyard interactions with these discard traps, and just maximizing 5 ways to banish stuff from the graveyard in the sideboard. That's so huge, alongside the 2 Book of Lives in the main deck. I think this was an incredible meta call. Really strong understanding of what it is people are trying to do and how to beat it. Lightning Vortex for like the Swarm aggro decks, just as a way to remove multiple monsters, put yourself in an okay position, maybe set up your own graveyard by discarding a Mizuki or a Plague. I really like this deck. I think it's just solid. Nothing but bangers. You got Lure of Darkness, best draw spell in the format. You got, well, maybe next to Solar Recharge. I don't know. I think this one's really, really good. This is a really, really good draw spell. You got, you know, Charge of the Light Brigade for your 2 Raikos and your Lila. Lila is another great inclusion in this deck, I think. I think it's really interesting that he elected to play the Chaos Sorcerer with only 3 lights and the charge, but it worked out for him. I think that's a nice way to approach things. You're like, okay, Chaos Sorcerer is so powerful, it's so good, and if I like don't see the lights, you can always pitch it to like your Wind Blast, your Trag, your Zombie Master, your Bryonic. Like, it's never really gonna be a super dead card in this deck. So I do like the inclusion of the raw power cards and just being like, fuck it. If it pops, it pops, and if not, I can just use it as a way to convert my other stuff. In the sideboard, he's got 2 Pulling the Rugs. These could have been maybe Zombie Worlds, but Zombie World does shut off your own Kaya, so you have to be careful of that. And he's not playing the Doom Kaiser Dragon. I think Zombie World is a lot better when you are playing the Doom Kaiser Dragon. So I understand the Pulling the Rugs. Pulling the Rug is also really solid against gadgets, which maybe he was a little bit afraid of. I think the Zombie Gadget matchup is a very interesting one. In general, I think Zombies is a really good deck. I think it's very slept on. I think the way it approaches the format that's more solved is cool. I think that as we move to these more powerful decks, these more like disgusting interactions that involve the graveyard, that involve like doing these crazy combos, Zombies does a very good job in those types of metagames. And I think that it was a great meta call for Zerus, and he played exceptionally well. Congratulations to his first place finish. Whew, that was a lot. That was a lot. But you know what? We made the biggest Edison tournament since the Shona Jump again, which is insane. RBET03 is going to be even bigger. I already know it. We broke viewership records on the channel both yesterday and the day before, which is amazing. Thank you guys so much for everything you've done for not only my channel, but for the format. You guys are super cool. Edison format wouldn't be where it's at. We wouldn't have tournaments like this with 207 players if you guys weren't just like dope people overall. Big shout out to everyone who participated, everyone who watched, everyone who helped out. Mika and Jazz, of course, the format library. Shout out to Metafy for sponsoring the events. Shout out to the other commentators who helped out this weekend. RJ, shout out to Fraser and Kenny. Shout out to Hydro Pump. Definitely check those guys out if you get the chance. Show them some love for everything they do for the format as well. And if you've made it this far in the video, I want to show you guys a little bonus deck list. All right, I want to show you guys a little bonus deck list. This is one that we featured in day one on camera, and I like to call this deck list the Car Path. All right, it doesn't have a name as of right now, but I feel like it's just fitting to name it after its creator. This is the Car Path deck list. This is something I'm going to be playing on the channel in the next few days, and this deck list is so sick. This deck list is so sick. You got Kuraz and all of the ways in the world to take advantage of it. Kuraz plus Call of the Haunted is a Pot of Greed. Kuraz plus Mausoleum is a Pot of Greed. Kuraz plus Dandelion. You draw... Oh, it's just so nasty. This is such a cool deck. Kuraz pops Gear Town. They happen simultaneously, I believe. I'm not sure if Kuraz makes Gear Town mistiming or not. I'm pretty sure it doesn't. I'm pretty sure it's simultaneous. And so you can pop Gear Town, special summon out the Gear Dragon. This deck is so sick. It's got all these tech field spells that you can tutor for off terraforming. It's got Zombie World to help your Mizuki become a Monster Reborn. It converts your Foolish Burial into a Monster Reborn. You've got Black Garden to floodgate out faster decks. You've got Brain plus Mind to help convert off of your Plague and your Debris Dragons as tuners. Sangan searches all of the most important stuff in this deck. You've got Gore's Trag plus Defense, Triple Wind Blast to help you discard maybe dead cards like Ancient Gear Dragon if you draw them, or Dandelions to help give you this powerful Lone Fire Titanial interaction. In the sideboard, you've got an extra Zombie World. You've got Imperial Iron Wall for the unfair shit. You've got Mind Crush. This deck list is so sick. In the extra deck, you see the triple Ancient Fairy Dragon. Of course, this card has a very powerful effect. You can destroy as many field spells on the field as possible. Well, in Edison format, only one, because there can only be one. And then you gain 1,000 life points. If you choose to add a field spell, it does make Gear Town mistiming, but as we learned in the commentary that, I don't remember who said it, but if you blow up Gear Town with Ancient Fairy Dragon, you choose not to search, you do get a special summon out an Ancient Gear Dragon. So you could do something like summon Debris, bring back Dandelion, synchro to Ancient Fairy Dragon, get 2 tokens, activate Gear Town, pop the Gear Town, gain 1,000 life points, which is huge in this format because decks are looking to murder you as quickly as possible. Special summon out an Ancient Gear from your deck. You're just in an insane position. You attack for 5,100. This deck is so sick. I'm going to be playing the shit out of this. Shoutouts to Carpath for this. I would love it if you guys gave Carpath some love in the comments below. He just barely missed out on top with this in a heartbreaker of a game. And yeah, shoutouts to everyone who entered again. E3 Yu-Gi-Oh! Signing off. Peace out, everyone.